All right, we're back with Business Builder Insights, and I'm joined on the stage with the CEO of Iliad Media Group, Darrell Calton. If you don't know about Iliad Media Group, you might recognize their old name, which was formerly Radio Impact Group. This started in the late 90s, and they were an independent, and still are, an independent broadcasting group, and they're one of the longest running ownership companies here in the Treasure Valley when it comes to radio, TV, and newspapers. I'd like you to welcome to the stage right now, Darrell Calton, CEO of Iliad Media Group. Darrell, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, I appreciate it.
All right, well, we want to hear a little bit more about your keynote address coming up on May 6th. But before we do that, can you tell the audience a little bit about Iliad Media Group and your journey with them?
You bet. We formally started, as Nick alluded to, as Impact Radio Group. You might know us as that. We've had a brand change, so to speak. But we started, my journey with the company started, the company under one roof started in early 2008. My journey started in August of 2008, and as you all know, the Great Recession happened starting in December of about 2008. So our company was born in fire, so to speak, is how we started. We were just very new. We had the best collection of the worst group of radio stations in town, and we have consistently worked to upgrade the signals. We've consistently worked to upgrade all of the programming, our community services, our service to the community, and the service that we provide to our businesses.
And you mentioned the Great Recession in 2008, and so obviously no one really expected what was going to happen with the COVID, but I know you were out there working and communicating not only with your teams because it had a really devastating impact on radio right at the beginning of the pandemic, but you didn't shy away from it. Can you talk about, and it's probably lessons learned because again, this isn't your first radio, but can you talk about that experience with your team and where you're at now because of your hands-on approach?
Yeah, Nick, we found ourselves when the pandemic started, we had actually pushed all of our employees and studios out into front rooms and in back bedrooms about a week before the governor issued the order. And we sat down and we looked at a couple of things. We looked at two questions I had to ask myself. Has this happened before in the history, in known history? And number two, have you seen something similar? And the answer was a resounding yes to both of those questions. In terms of us seeing it before, we had, as I said earlier, we had been born during the Great Recession. And number two, had this ever happened before? And we sat down, and I'm a great believer in history and the stories that we can learn from history. And we found out that the Spanish flu of 1918 was absolutely just as devastating. There was a smaller population in the state of Idaho, but the lingering effects of the Spanish flu of 1918 took about 2 years. And knowing that right out of the gate, I was in a position where we could sit down and start planning long-term for the exit. We talked with our employees a lot about the exit bar and keeping your eyes focused on the horizon and what that might feel like when you push that exit bar and we step out, hopefully into a recovery in another year or two. So we actually prepped for 2 years.
So, and then, when you did this transition too, because you were formerly Impact Radio Group and you transitioned to now Iliad Media Group, obviously it's far more than just radio, right? Can you talk a little bit about that transition and all the services now Iliad offers?
Sure, you bet. We decided that long ago, after we came through the Great Recession, that being a group of radio stations wasn't just enough. We needed to start pushing what we were really good at. And back then, we were great at social media, and all of the streaming and those types of things helped our business grow. So we were very fortunate in having learned how to push to talk, that walkie-talkie aspect, where radio, you just turn on the knob and it comes out of the speaker. For us, we had that push to talk with our social media. So we started growing all of those brands, and it just made sense that we needed to push people into digital services, and we needed to have them understand that the important part about radio is what makes us important as a society, as human beings. We started out telling stories around campfires, and that's really what radio is. So we developed a system during the pandemic that was called Be Heard, Be Found, Tell Your Story. And that's what we help our clients do today. So we have a full digital division, we have a full storytelling division, and we have 13 radio stations, 7 in Boise and 6 in Twin Falls, Idaho. And we're really proud to be that independent group that's homegrown here in the state of Idaho.
Well, and we're happy that you're heavily involved in the community, and you do a lot for our community, by the way.
Thank you.
I know during the pandemic, you reached out to the business community, especially the small and medium-sized businesses, as being a resource. The budgets were pretty much wiped out, and you were still reaching out and being a resource for that community, and I definitely appreciate you for that.
We'll talk a little bit about that during the keynote speech, but that was one of the things that we were most proud of, is that we were able to mobilize, and we put out 27,000 free commercials for businesses who were still deemed essential, right? You had that essential group. There was a lot of folks that people didn't know that they were open. So we pushed out 27,000 commercials in the first 6 weeks of the shutdown order for the non-essential businesses here in the Treasure Valley, and we did somewhere in the neighborhood of about 14 or 15,000 commercials for businesses. We would have them sign up, and we still hear from some of them, and some of them went on to become great clients even a year later. So I feel like some of that helped, and it certainly made us feel better, and it gave us something to do while we were taking cancellations.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, again, thanks for stepping up to the plate for that community. It was needed really at that very important part of our time. We needed that support.
Thank you.
And we appreciate that. So you mentioned your keynote. So May 6th.
Yeah.
That's just next week, next
Yep.
Thursday. We're going to be at the Galaxy Event Center, and your keynote's at 9 a.m. And this year, your keynote is What's Next? Going from Surviving to Thriving. So can you give us a little bit about what to expect with that keynote coming up next week?
Yeah, you bet. I think really one of the things that we want to have everybody understand is, when I spoke earlier about those two questions, have we, has something like this happened in history, and have we seen anything like this before? We want to be able to impart to you some knowledge, we want to entertain you, and we want to give you some things to take home. And 3 of the things that we want to talk about, 3 words that also relate to 3 mindsets. We want to talk about the word fear and how debilitating that can be in a downturn during what I term a great event. A great event being something that affects your local, national, or regional economy by more than 20%. We want to talk about recognizing what the signs are. There's 2 stages to fear. There's also 2 stages to the word survive. What does that mean? What does it mean to survive? And how long can we do that? And then we want to take a look at the most important, the very important word, thrive. How do we thrive in an environment, even today, that's still sluggish? It's not what it was in 2019 or 2018.
Right. Well, I know I've listened to you speak before. You're an incredible speaker. I'm really looking forward to your keynote address next Thursday. And again, if you haven't registered, be sure to do so at businessbuilderday.com. Darrell, I appreciate you giving us a few minutes of your time today. And if you haven't checked out Iliad Media Group, do so now. They're an amazing company. They're heavily involved in our community. Thanks again, Darrell, for being here today.
I appreciate it. Thank you.